Thanks for the opportunity to speak here. I slightly changed the title. Before it ended, I think it said Challenges, Successes and Failures, so it ended a bit on a kind of bloop, so I thought we'd have potentials at the end, so it kind of goes up a bit. Okay? The subtitle is the Cognitive Psychology Cookbook. So what I'll do over the next few minutes is tell you a little bit about some of the things we've been trying to do to improve what we can offer students on course PROPSY305, which is a course in the third semester of the professional study for the clinical students. It's a course on cognitive psychology, and it takes place in English language. We have some exchange students, and we have two components to the course: a fairly conventional, largely lecture-based module telling students about basic and higher mental processes from a cognitive perspective, and then a more research-based EmNet-Abgabe. So this course has been running now for a couple of semesters, so it's now in its third semester. We were very honoured that the students in the first two semesters, since we started a new course at the beginning of the study revision plan, put us forward for the Læringsmiljøprisen. This talk is not going to be about how to get the Læringsmiljøprisen, because I'm as baffled as anybody, but we do thank the students a lot for this initiative, and we take very seriously that positive feedback and take it as encouragement to try and continue doing as good a job as we can. Now, I also want to say that the course is very much in progress. There will be students who are...
We lost a picture.
We did, didn't we? Well, I have no idea why. Oh, we lost a picture because there isn't a picture. That's why. There isn't always a picture. So what was I saying? Yeah, I just wanted to say that this is very much work in progress, and there will be students who are quite baffled why we got the Læringsmiljøprisen, because they've given us lots of feedback, which we take seriously, that my lectures suck and the whole course sucks. But anyway, as I said, we're trying our best. I also want to say at the outset that I'm not an expert in teaching theory. There are lots of people here who know a lot more about all that kind of stuff than I do, and the changes that we've made are very much based on my intuitions and on discussions with people who know more about this than I do. In particular, I want to acknowledge Ivar Normo in Læringsforskning, discussions with student reps and students generally. Henrik here has been a big influence on our thinking in the way we do our student evaluations, and so on. So it's very much a group effort. Also, what I'm going to say may not be relevant to all courses, but I hope that it's at least some of what I say is relevant for some of you. Okay, so by way of background, the motivation to actually start thinking about changes to the way we did things came from the study revision plan, which challenged us because basically the gods above decided that cognitive psychology would be kind of compressed in a number of hours we could teach, and also very compressed in the timetable sandwiched between other courses. So it meant we didn't have any time for meaningful exam revision unless we were going to test students at the end of the semester after they'd already done other courses and been examined in other courses, which we thought would be kind of pedagogically not a good idea. So as EmNet-Ansvarlig, my choice was either to resign or to think of some way of saving cognitive psychology and coming up with an evaluation system for the students, which was not going to be pedagogically suicidal. So the recipe we kind of came up with involves a few ingredients. The main course is a couple of interrelated themes, which are what do we want the students to learn and how are we going to evaluate that learning. So I'll embed that within a sort of larger context of puddings and starters and so on and so forth. I'll just mention them quickly. So here's the first starter. So first of all, attitude. Now this is kind of obvious in a way, right? Openness to feedback and criticism, willingness to change. But time and time again, we're getting the message from the students that this is something that they're not seeing in their teaching courses. Okay, this is something they don't really feel that they're taken seriously, and it's something we've tried to work on. Secondly, inspiration. So right there at the beginning, even at the introductory meeting for a course, and these introductory meetings are notoriously boring, aren't they? We've got to get in there and inspire the students and persuade them that cognitive psychology is not actually the most boring subject on earth, but is a fascinating tool to give us insight into the workings of the human mind. And we can bring lots of nice examples right in there at the introductory meeting level of the course. Then we're going to avoid losing half the students before we've actually begun. Okay, so now we start to get onto the meat. So the next ingredient is we've got to make sure that we're telling a story. Okay? We're going to make sure that we're not just concentrating on factual information, the trees, the facts that students are going to forget after they've sat the exam, or possibly even before they sat the exam. We want them to focus on the forest, the larger picture, the structured, integrated understanding, the deep learning that we've been hearing about in the previous talk. How are we going to do that? That idea of making sure we tell a story is very interrelated with the next point, which is how we're going to do the student assessment. So some of you may have seen this article in BT Debat in December. We're talking about the traditional school exam, hopelessly old-fashioned. Okay, so how are we going to evaluate the students in a way which helps them to focus on the forest, not the trees, on the big picture, on the deep learning, and allow us to evaluate the students within the context of the very tight timetable that we were given? So what we have to do is, first of all, we have to ensure two things. First of all, that the thematic content of the exams is going to be aligned with what we want them to learn. In other words, learn about the forest, the big picture. Okay, so in technical jargon, this is apparently called constructive alignment, right, between the evaluation method and the learning goals. Thank you, Ivar, for your helpful tuition on this important theme. And then we've got to make sure that the exam method itself, how we do the exam, is actually going to enhance the learning rather than inhibit it. And here I'm indebted to conversations I've had with Henrik. So the solution we came up with is a kind of a mappenvurdering, or assessment portfolio approach, where we gave students mini essays which are staggered across the individual lecture modules. So in more detail, sorry, this slide is really boring, but I kind of have to put this in. So we have these broad essay questions, right, which are going to focus on allowing the students to rehearse their conceptual understanding. So the actual writing the essay, doing the exam, is part of the learning process. It's part of the revision process, which is going to embed that material in their long-term memory. At the moment, we have usually in most semesters 3 mini essays which are staggered across the lecture courses, so we can focus on one thing at a time. Less stress, having, for most students anyway, having these smaller examination units. There's very limited revision time. That's not a good thing, but we have to live with that. But at least what that means is that people are revising the themes while it's fresh in their mind, which, you know, from a cognitive point of view is the best time to actually encode things into your long-term memory. The mini essays are timetabled, they're time limited. It used to be 2 hours, now it's been extended to 2.5 hours on the basis of student feedback. Free access to notes, books, internet, etc. So we're minimizing the rote memory aspect of learning. They write on laptops in class or even at home. The length of the essays is limited to about 1,000 words, so we're focusing on structure, focus, and synthesis, not several pages of blether. They upload this as a PDF to MySpace. This is then immediately available to the lecturers, who can start the process of evaluating the essays much earlier in the semester than they would have been able to otherwise. You can spread the load of the essay marking over a longer time, so that's a good thing. Then each essay is marked both by usually the specialist lecturer, that's usually the person who actually gives the course, and an external. This is fairer for the students. They've got a specialist involved in the marking. They've got several specialists involved, so the kind of inequalities in marking are spread over more lecturers. It's also fairer for the lecturers because the workload of marking is spread over more people. And then the independent grades, which are student blind, are then averaged for a final grade. Okay, so what do students think of this? So if we ask them, are you satisfied with this compared with other exam methods? So this is an evaluation from spring 2013, just a Likert scale from strongly disagree to strongly agree. We found that about 70% of students are in the agree to strongly agree ballpark here. Right? So it's a pretty popular way to do things. And in the last semester, that's actually gone up to about 90% agree or strongly agree that they like this, compared with school exam, multiple choice, home exam, etc. We also asked them many other questions, including, do they like these staggered essays throughout the course? So again, spring 2013, agree, strongly agree, about 90% of people. Again, the same in last semester, agree, strongly agree. They like this idea of mini essays staggered across the course rather than having everything in one big dollop. And then at a more qualitative level, what do we find people saying? I like it. Yeah, good. It was strange in the beginning. Well, that's okay, we're not used to this, but this exam method made me study more effectively. But yeah, that's great, exactly what we wanted, okay? I won't go through all these. Now, of course, there are some people who didn't like this, okay? And we have to pay very close attention to why it is that some people found this evaluation method challenging. And basically, you know, this is very new for the students to have to write a very structured, short essay in a fairly short amount of time. Now, people aren't used to doing that. We can see that from what they produce in the exams. And we look at what people are actually writing. There's a tendency to keep on the old thing of just regurgitating as much factual information as possible. So I think this is actually a skill that we need to develop in the students. Okay? And the fact that some of our students are finding this difficult is actually indicative of this as a skill that's missing from their repertoire. So in summary then, most students like this approach, at least in principle. Students are unfamiliar with the essay style. They need practice in doing this. We try and make sure that they do get some practice during the course of the lectures. We need more coaching for the students who find this problematic. At the moment, the revision time is suboptimal, but there's not a lot we can do about that right now. And it's important to fine-tune how we're doing this as we go along, so student evaluations are very important for that. Importantly, at the moment, we can't give students feedback on how they're doing as we go along, which would pedagogically be very, very useful, and this is something that students want to do. This is to do with university rules, and we're trying to work on a sort of way to get around this at the moment. And for the students here, yes, we are still trying to work on how to get around that, okay? Okay, how am I doing for time?
4 or 5 minutes.
Okay, I was going to say something about Emneopgave, and I'm just going to skip that, I think. Another ingredient I just want to mention is I started experimenting last semester with video recording lectures. And I know you've just learned that, you know, IT is not just video recording lectures, but anyway, I started experimenting with video recording lectures. So this is something that we're being offered by the faculty now. The system's installed in some of the classrooms. It's a very nice offer. It's something which is routine, if not compulsory, in many other universities in the world. The way I actually did it with more temporary equipment, because the classroom systems weren't up and running when I wanted to do this last semester. So that meant we lost a few of the lectures due to technical problems, and it also meant the lag time between giving the lecture and loading it up online was rather longer than it would have been ideally. So that detracted from the usefulness of the exercise. Nevertheless, I think it was fairly successful. I'm just going to try and give you a quick example of the sort of thing you can get. So let's see, here's me talking about something or other. I'm afraid we've lost the sound, so we can't see the sound. But what you can basically get online then is a mixture of the lecture slides and yours truly blethering away. And if you like the look of your face, you can make yourself bigger, right? And if you think you've got a silly hairstyle, you can make yourself smaller again and concentrate on the slides. And then you can sort of, if you decide that bit of the lecture is something that was boring or that you understood perfectly well, you can zoom along and find maybe part of the lecture that you had more trouble with. Okay, so this is a very nice tool to be able to go in and look at afterwards. Where are we? Back here. Yeah. So here's a slide showing how many students viewed any of the lectures, even partly. So about 45% of students are viewing most or all of the lectures a little bit, and about 20% of the students are viewing most or all of the lectures in their entirety, or almost in their entirety, which is actually quite a lot. It was about 20 hours of lectures there. Right? There's quite a lot of viewing. Some people aren't, but okay, some people are. And if we ask people whether they think this was useful for their learning process, we find that about 70% of students agree or strongly agree that this was useful for their learning process, which is saying to us that even if students are only going in and looking at some of the lectures, they still find that very useful. Of course, they can go in and find the bits that are relevant for them, okay, the bits that they found difficult. Then qualitatively, we had some feedback like, superb, the lectures are really, really helpful, keep them, they were a lifesaver for me, and so on. So for some people, for some students, this was really useful. It's a win-win situation, because if a student doesn't find this useful, they just don't need to look at them. Okay? So it's not like most things you do in teaching where some people like it and some people hate it. It's only relevant to the people who like it. And we also had some more detailed descriptions of how people found looking at the lectures useful to go back through bits of the lectures that they found difficult. So, in summary, the advantages are many students find this useful, especially if they find parts of the course difficult. They can catch up if they get sick. It can be used to help students who want to do resits. I've already got one student who's going to have to do a resit who already said it's going to be very useful to be able to look at these lectures again. And also, the lecturer can use them if they get sick. Okay, so we kind of bypass that nightmare scenario of what do I do if I can't give my lectures. Now, potentials, now we've heard a lot more about that in the previous talk, but what I'm kind of looking to in the future is, can we start to replace some of our lectures with pre-records and then free up teacher contact time to do other more interactive things with the students? Also, there's the potential of sharing lectures between courses, something which should be very interesting for people who are trying to organise things at a more general level. Okay, so why should we repeat thematically the same content across different courses? We can make these pre-records available to students, even across faculties if necessary. Okay, now one last thing I want to mention is the importance of student feedback. So what we've been doing very diligently, I think, is getting detailed feedback from the students each semester. We try and involve most of the students by doing our student feedback in class time, so we get opinions from everybody. It's regular, by which I mean we try and do it every semester. It's detailed, not just that we ask many questions, but, okay, as well as looking at the means, we look at distributions. We're trying to find, are there some students who are having problems with a particular aspect of our lectures and trying to spot what those problems are. And we're also assessing individual lecturers so we can give detailed feedback to individual lecturers as to what their strengths and weaknesses are. And then we take this feedback seriously and act on it. Conclusion then is positive change is possible. There are some ingredients we need. The teachers have to show some effort, some willingness, and some humility to listen to what's wrong with their lectures and to change. And then at the level of the collective system, we need to have enough of us to have the energy and the time to do these changes. We need to have less time pressure. The system needs to be more flexible so we can make changes more quickly. So the time lag for changing course descriptions and maybe even the possibility of changing university rules becomes much easier. And then there needs to be incentive for teachers. We've heard that time and time again, but it's an important point. And I think if we get those ingredients, then we have a chance of giving the lecturers the time and the energy and the motivation to continue trying to improve things. Okay, so that's just all I want to say. I just want to end with an illustration of the importance of feedback in teaching. Thanks for your attention. For me, in my capacity teaching the subject that I teach, quality means making sure that the students come away from the courses that I'm responsible for, or even more so the courses that I actually teach, with a learning experience which they're going to remember, and they're going to have some useful insight into the nature of the human mind, which is going to benefit them in the long term, stay with them as a human being, as a clinician, or as a researcher. So there's got to be something there that sticks. There's got to be a message, a story that they remember, rather than just it all disappearing away as soon as they've sat their exams. And they've also got to if I can help students who maybe didn't find my topic particularly fascinating before they came to go away being enthusiastic about it, then that's a fantastic bonus. And I think one of the most rewarding things as a teacher is when students come up to you and say, when I came to this course, I thought cognitive psychology was going to be really boring, and actually now I realize it's really interesting. I don't think you can ask for more. For me, the thing I need is time. I need not to be so pressured by administrative bullshit, by publish or perish, that I actually have got the energy and the time to sit down and rethink how I'm going to do stuff. The problem is that we're running the whole time. We're having to plan the next semester before we even finish teaching the current one. When are we going to make the changes? There isn't the breathing space. So I just think, for me, time is the most important ingredient, and to the extent that we are not going to be over-pressured as teachers, I think we then have the if you like, the leisure to improve things. The more pressured we are, the less we can improve things, is my opinion.
Thank you.